Two house guests went home on last night's episode. One quit, one was evicted. Plus, we got to see the wild fallout from the veto ceremony. Then later on the feeds, the house guests competed in an endurance competition. Who won HOH? Who are the possible targets for this week? I think we have a really good idea of what the plans are. What's up, internet? My name's Ori. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, hit that like button. We're breaking down everything that happened on last night's episode of Celebrity Big Brother, plus what happened on the feeds, and so much more. Let's jump into the episode. So, like I was saying, last night, two house guests went home. The first one was due to somebody quitting. And it is official. Katan has left the Big Brother house. He self-evicted. It got to be just too much for him to be in the house. Anybody who's familiar with Katan's history, he was on SNL. It's why he's probably most famous for and how he even got to the house in the first place. But he suffered a neck and a back injury on the set during one of the skits on the show. And he's had over 5 surgeries on it throughout his life since. So that's really messed with him. Plus, on top of that, I just don't think it's very comfortable inside the Big Brother house for him, both physically and mentally. I think on the physical side, the beds are uncomfortable. He just can't get the right sleep schedule going. And I just think he was really struggling on that end. Plus, I just don't think he was enjoying his time inside the house. So it's a shame to see him go. I thought he was very funny. He was very entertaining, and I was growing to kind of love watching him on the show. But you have to take care of yourself, again, both physically and mentally. And if he wasn't prepared to stay in the house any longer and he had to go, he felt like that was the right decision for him, then I completely support him in that. But again, it was a shame to see him actually go. Now, following the self-eviction of Katan, who, by the way, was very emotional in his goodbye message to the house, so I don't think it was an easy decision for him to leave. But after we see his decision to leave, we got the veto competition. It was one of those rocking horse vetoes where you have to rock on the thing and get your time. Then you have to go complete a puzzle. Shayna kind of crushed this one. She locked in a really good answer and then let everybody kind of keep fighting. I honestly think the only reason Todrick kept fighting as long as he did was because Carson was still in the game. I think that was his main goal, to make sure Carson didn't win veto. But he stayed in there much longer than he really needed to, and even kind of looked like he ended up throwing it at the end. But while they were still competing, Miesha actually leaned over to Shayna because it was kind of obvious that she was going to win the veto at this point. She's like, it's okay if you want to use it. If it's okay to use the veto, you could take Cynthia down if you want. And Shayna's just like, oh, okay, thanks for the permission to use the power that I just won, but sure, okay. And Shayna did have the idea that she was going to use the power of veto, but that wasn't the way that she wanted to use it. She didn't want to save Cynthia. She decided she wanted to save Carson. Now, again, this was kind of worst case scenario for Miesha and Todrick. Their main target in this week was Carson, so they would have rathered Carson be on the block still. And they continued to try and make deals with Shayna because they had the idea that she was going to do this. And Shayna had none of it. She was like, nah, I think I'm going to just take down Carson. I'm going to do what I want to do. And that's what she did. She took down Carson, and Miesha had to make a replacement nominee, which ended up being In Sync. So those were your nominees going into the eviction of the episode. Now, following that veto ceremony, things got a little crazy. Shayna and Todd got into an argument. We didn't get to see much of it on the live feeds, but on the episode, they let it really kind of play out more. And it even was crazier than we kind of thought it was. So Todd and Cynthia, they are sitting at the kitchen table, and Cynthia just kind of calls them out. She's like, do you have a problem with me? Because if you do, I'd rather kind of talk it out and get it over with and, face it for what it is, which seemed very rational, right? And then she started to get heated. Todd was like, no, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. And what it really boils down to is Todd felt like they had a trust in each other to not vote for each other. And in the first week, it was Todd versus Teddi. Cynthia voted to keep Teddi over Todd. Now that it's in a situation where Cynthia is up on the block, Todd feels like Cynthia did him dirty, so he has to then get her back for it. And what was great was it was kind of okay until Lamar started stirring that pot, baby. And he was like, yeah, you know what? He's being a jerk. And Cynthia's like, yeah, you know what? He is being a jerk. And then they're starting to go back at it more and more. And then Lamar, he starts clapping. He starts clapping as Cynthia is just tearing into his buddy Todd. They talk all the time. And it's just getting worse and worse until eventually Todd, he gets up into Cynthia's face and is screaming at her. And then eventually he books out of there to the bathroom and starts being all upset about it. Luckily, Carson was able to get Cynthia kind of out of there as well. He did a really good job of being a great friend to Cynthia. Carson, A+ in this episode. He comes over, he grabs her, pulls her away. Todrick tries to ask Cynthia, he's like, hey, you know, if you want to talk later. And she's like, I don't have anything to talk about. And it was like the perfect comedic time of Carson going, she's okay. She's okay. So Carson kind of cools Cynthia down in the other room. They talk about what happened. And he then leaves after he makes sure that Cynthia's okay, goes to Todd and starts calling him out. He's like, Todd, what were you doing? And he's like, she was getting up in my face, so I got it up in her face. And he's like, you can't do that. You just don't get up into a woman's face like that. It's intimidating. He's like, I wasn't going to do nothing. It's like, so she doesn't know that. It's still intimidating. So A+ for Carson for not only being just a good human being, but being a good friend. He really stood up for his girl Cynthia in that moment. So that brings us to the eviction. And while obviously there's some heated words here and there from, different parties and who they might vote for, and it ended up being a 5-0 vote. Everybody unanimously voting to get rid of NSYNC. So NSYNC, he was evicted 5-0. And he kind of fell on his sword. Like, he has this weird warped perception that even though he was just evicted, we won the game. Like, he sacrificed himself for it. It's like, no, you just ended up in a situation where your allies felt more strongly with other allies going forward, and you kind of ruined the trust with both sides. And we could talk for hours about how Chris NSYNC messed up his game, but let's move on from that. So after that, we get into the live feeds. Now, it was a live endurance competition on the feeds after the episode. They finished the episode showing us the Houseguests hanging on the wall. It was like a director's chair looking contraption, and they were sprayed with hairspray, which was kind of like a smoke and fog that would come in. And they were also shooting them with makeup, and it was like, powdered paint or whatever they would splash at them, almost like those color runs, if you ever did those like fancy 5Ks that they do where they throw the powder at you as you're running around. So the first 3 out, it was Cynthia, Lamar, and Todd. They were the first 3 to fall. That left 3 up on the wall: Carson, Shayna, and Todrick. Eventually Shayna was the one to fall, and it left Carson and Todrick up there as the final 2. Here's where things get a little sticky. Carson did make a deal with Todrick. While they were up there, Todrick's like, I don't think I can hold on any longer. He eventually falls. Carson is your HOH for the week. And like I said, he made a deal with Todrick not to put him up initially. That's key, because he didn't promise Todrick not to backdoor him. So he has that option if he needs to, but he did say he did promise not to initially nominate him. The possible noms, Miesha is almost guaranteed to be on there, and Todd would be the other nominee. So it would be Todd and Miesha up there. Things get a little hairy because let's say Lamar wins veto and takes down either Todd or Miesha, right? It doesn't matter who we would take down at that point. There's only one option, and that's Todrick, because he's not putting up his girl Cynthia, and he's not putting up Shayna. Those are his alliance, the Twisters. So he's not going to put either of those two up. So if Lamar wins veto, it's kind of worst case scenario for Miesha and Todrick, because one of them will be going home if they're both on the block. I would imagine Lamar wouldn't want to waste that opportunity to save his friend Todd, but also, like I said, he was the one stirring the pot with the fight with Cynthia. So who knows? Lamar right now is the biggest wild card in the house, and I'm loving it. It's great. So yeah, that pretty much covers everything that happened on the episode, everything that happened on the live feeds afterwards. What did you think of the episode? Are you sad to see Chris Katan go? Are you sad to see Chris in Sync go? What do you think of the new HOH, Carson, and what do you think of his plan so far? Who would you like to see nominated and evicted this Monday? So Sunday is the next episode where we'll see the final of the HOH, probably Noms, and then Monday we're having another live veto competition and ceremony, and then eviction as well. Maybe we'll get an HOH on that episode too. But Monday is the next eviction episode, so that will be the next live watch along. We did have a live watch along last night. That was a lot of fun, getting to see the fallout of the fight, how everything went with the Chris Katan eviction, and it was a very interesting episode to watch along. So once again, guys, thank you guys for watching. My name's been Ori. If you're new here, click that subscribe button. It's a little button right down there. Click that little notification bell. We're always doing live feed updates, episode reviews, like I said, watch along parties. Next one will be on Monday for Monday's episode. And hit that like button if you made it all the way through this episode. It really helps me out. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.